I believe that's it for vitamin C. Let's talk about vitamin D. Very important also. It's a fat-soluble vitamin. 3 categories of vitamin C, and if you're going to buy a supplement, you want to look for vitamin D3. Vitamin D is necessary for the movement of calcium and phosphorus ions back and forth in and out of the small intestine, kidneys, and bone. So calcium and phosphorus can't really do what they need to do without vitamin D to help them. They sort of make up a very important trinity of vitamins and minerals. You can use vitamin D to treat childhood rickets and adult osteomalacia, which is basically adult rickets, hypoparathyroidism, and familial hypophosphatemia, where the body is unable to use phosphorus to develop the bones. Adverse reactions to taking too much vitamin D: you can get loss of appetite, cause a lot of GI problems, nausea, weight loss, either constipation or diarrhea. It can make the body feel all achy and stiff, which is one of the side effects of deficiency also. So I had a friend whose mom kept reading about vitamin D deficiency, so she started taking large amounts of vitamin D, and the side effects were making her think, oh man, my vitamin deficiency is really bad. So she took more and more and ended up barely avoiding needing renal dialysis because she overdosed herself so badly. So you have to be careful. It tends to want to stick with you a little bit longer since it's fat soluble. You can find vitamin D in milk. It's added to infant formula. Now all milk has vitamin D, but whole milk they go ahead and call vitamin D milk, but it's in all the milks and milk products. They put it in cereals, margarines, and a lot of diet foods. Once again, store in a light resistant container. We tend to have mild vitamin D deficiencies because we don't go out in the sun. The skin can synthesize vitamin D through sunlight, and that becomes sort of a precursor to the vitamin D that our body develops through the foods we eat. And since we don't get as much sun as we used to, we have indoor jobs, we're not working out in the sun, and when we do go out in the sun, we tend to use a lot of sunscreen because the dermatologists have really pushed that. And that's true too. It's like you can have sunlight and lots of vitamin D, or you can have lack of vitamin D and, avoid skin cancer. So it's kind of a double-edged sword there, but we do need a certain amount of sunshine every day. I think I've read that 20 minutes of direct sunlight will give you the vitamin D that you need for that particular day. This is a picture of some children back in the early part of the 19th or the 20th century, early 1900s, with rickets. It was very common to see children with rickets, partially because of nutritional deficiencies and partially because a lot of children lived in tenement areas with very high buildings that blocked out the sun. When they did get to go out and play, the sunlight wasn't reaching them. Children many times started working in factories very young. So by the time they were 6 or 7, they were already working along with their parents, 12-hour days, 6 days a week, and they didn't get to get out and play in the sun there either. And so if it were just their legs that were affected, that would have been bad enough because it's disfiguring. But in female children who suffered from rickets, their legs wouldn't develop, and that would eventually affect their hips and their pelvis. And many times the pelvis wouldn't develop properly. And once they tried to give birth, you had a narrow pelvic outlet, and some women had multiple stillbirths because their babies weren't able to fit through the birth canal because of damage to their hips. It was called rachitic pelvis, and it was responsible for a lot of deaths of unborn children back in the days before C-sections were readily available. And so the baby would die in the process of childbirth without ever being born, and would have to be surgically removed after it died in the process of birth. So it was pretty devastating to have vitamin D deficiencies back in the day. Vitamin E is a fat-soluble vitamin. Its functions in the body are not fully understood, but it is believed that they are antioxidants that can help to prevent damage to all the cell membranes. And so to have good sturdy cell membranes all through the tissues and eventually organs, vitamin C is important. It's shown to stabilize the red blood cell wall to help protect against destruction. It's least likely to be toxic of all the fat-soluble vitamins, and good sources are vegetable oils. Wheat germ is the best source of vitamin E, and your green leafy vegetables will also help to ensure that you get enough vitamin E. Vitamin K, also another fat-soluble vitamin. It works in the liver to help form the various clotting factors, and there are a number of clotting factors all through the liver, and many of them are vitamin K dependent. If you don't have enough vitamin K, you will not be able to produce these particular clotting factors, and so the clotting cascade will be unsuccessful. So vitamin K is used to treat clotting disorders. Vitamin K is administered by injection. It's the first injection that babies get. It is not a vaccine. It is a vitamin injection because babies don't really start making sufficient amounts of vitamin K until they are several months old at least, 4 to 6 months old. And so by giving a shot of vitamin K, it can make up for that lack. It used to be there was a risk, especially in very difficult vaginal childbirths, that there would be bleeding on the brain because of lack of vitamin K. Once it started being given as an injection right after birth, you saw very, very few cases of vitamin K deficient bleeding. Now, because people are equating them with vaccines, which they're so not, and a lot of false reports have gotten out. There was a really poor study with not a lot of documentation done years ago linking vitamin K to childhood leukemia. This study was never able to be replicated. It was eventually debunked, but it's still out there traveling among the anti-vax communities, and so people are refusing vitamin K, and there are increasing numbers of vitamin K deficient bleeds in newborns and readmissions to the hospital for that. Vitamin K is the antidote to an overdose of warfarin or Coumadin, and it is found in your organ meats, especially liver, and all of your green leafy vegetables, broccoli, spinach, kale, various greens. In fact, you have to watch your intake of greens if you're on warfarin.